Om Sadashivasamarampam
Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam
Vande
Vande
Paramparam.
Parampara.
Sahanavatu Sahano
Sahano
Bhunaktu
Bhunaktu
Sahavirvavahai
Sahavirvavahai
Tejasvinavadhinastu Vidvishavahai
Vidvishavahai.
Shanti Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti
Vasudeve Yogendram
Tattva Jnanapradam Guru
Pradam Guru
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Tattva
Tattva-bodhidhiyate.
Welcome back. Is the sound okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Vandanaji.
Yes, Pandana.
Don't see anyone on the screen today. Or is it my setting? Okay, I see. Nice. Lovely. So last class, we talked about Atma and Anatma. I gave you the clay pot example. And we saw that when we inquired into the pot, what was substantial that could exist independently was only the clay. And that is what we call Satyam. And we saw that the pot or whatever else could be made out of that clay was only a dependent principle. And this we called Mithya. This is what Shastra calls Mithya. This Mithya Vastu is nothing more than Nama Rupa, name and form, which is given to the clay. So we saw that Satyam was Ekam, only one, and Mithya can be Anekam, several. We saw that Satyam was Nityam, which is eternal, and Mithya is transient, Anityam. So this Mithya, or also sometimes referred to as Maya, concept exists only in Advaita Vedanta. Why do we have this concept in Advaita Vedanta? It's because now we have to translate from all this, we have to translate and understand Mithya as a dependent reality. We are not saying Mithya is unreal. That's not the concept we are talking about here. Unreal is asat in Sanskrit. So Mithya is not asat. Mithya is just a dependent reality. This concept exists in Vedanta to tell you that all these, everything that you experience, we admit there is a reality to it. Right? We are not asking you to negate all these experiences that you feel, these thoughts you have, these people you're interacting with. We're just simply asking you to be aware of the reality that there is a higher reality than this. Just like the dream tiger which was chasing you belonged to a lower level of reality. Even this transactional world, the Vyavaharika, belongs to a lower level of reality than the ultimate reality that we are talking about here. So there's a few more reasons why this Mithya concept exists. I was flying this weekend and I heard a nice story on YouTube, so I thought I will share that because it's a kind of an entertaining story. It's about this prince of Kashi, who, when he was a very young boy, about 5, there was a lot of events happening in the palace that time, some plays and people dressing up and things like that. And his mother, the queen, dressed up this young prince as a girl and as part of the plays which were going on. And the young prince looked so beautiful that the queen said, we should have a portrait made. So they called a painter and they got a portrait of the prince made. And then it got put away somewhere over time and life went on. Then one day, about 15 years later, the young prince, now young man, was exploring the palace, and he was exploring some of the back rooms, and he came across this painting. And he saw this beautiful girl in the painting and fell in love with her. He saw the date of the painting and said, oh, she must be about my age now. So, and he somehow couldn't stop thinking about this girl he saw in the painting, and he became very lovesick, and but he thought he was shy, or he thought his parents wouldn't understand, so he never told anyone why he was feeling what he was feeling. But over time, his parents obviously noticed that there's something wrong with the prince. He looks more and more withdrawn and somehow sad. They tried to ask him what was wrong, but he wouldn't say. So they sent this wise minister who the prince liked to talk to the prince. And so the minister comes to the prince and says, so young prince, what's wrong? Why have you been so sad of late? So the prince says, you see, I'm in love. It's like, the minister's like, that's great. Who is she? Maybe I can talk to your parents for you. And the prince says, well, she's a princess. The minister says, wow, that's perfect. Very suitable for a prince like yourself. Then what's the problem? The prince says, well, I haven't actually met her. I've only seen a portrait of her. And it's from many years ago, about 15 years ago. The minister now starts to understand, guess maybe what's happened. So he says, okay, can you take me to this portrait? So the prince takes the minister to this portrait of the young girl he's fallen in love with. And the minister says, well, you might want to sit down for this. So the prince sits down and the minister tells him, you see, prince, thou art that, Tattvamasi. This is you. And he explains the whole story of the play which was happening, the prince getting dressed up and the queen having this portrait painted and all. So what happens to all this longing that the prince had for this woman in the girl in the painting? The longing immediately disappears, right? So the desire to be with this woman disappears because he realizes that, oh, that is just me. So this is actually one of the points of this mithya concept, to make us realize that there is nothing outside us. Everything we long for, everything we might want to desire is part of us. Because we are this fullness. This is Advaitam we are talking about, right? So we are everything that we perceive at one level. So one reason for this mithya concept is to generate vairagyam in the seeker and generate this dispassion. But that is kind of a more superficial reason. The primary reason for the mithya concept is to point out that what you're seeking is right there. So when you look beyond the dependent reality, the absolute reality is also right there. So if you want to find the clay, it's exactly where the pot was. You don't have to look anywhere else. You just have to stop looking at the name and form of the pot, and the clay you're looking for is right there. That's the main reason for this mithya. It's, Advaita is telling you that what you're seeking for, if you're looking for God, you're looking for this absolute consciousness. You don't have to go into some deep meditative states and have supernatural experiences, gain some flying yogic abilities or anything like that. What you're seeking is right there. It's always been there. So we'll talk more about it. And now to understand, of course, we are saying the Satyam, the Atma is right there, right? But what we perceive, what we get taken in by is the Mithya, the Namarupa, which is why we started inquiring into what is this Mithya, what is this Anatma, because there is a confusion which exists. We are trying to understand who I am, but we already have concepts about who I is. So we're trying to clear up these concepts. So to delve into the Anatma, the scripture, this text gave us 11 parts. Anatma was classified into 11 parts, into 3 different kinds of classifications. And the first classification was the Shariratraya, the 3 bodies, which was Anatma. Then we will also look at the Panchakoshas, the 5 sheaths, and the Avastatrayam, the 3 states of awareness. Right? So we had entered that first part of the 3 bodies, and we are trying to understand that Atma is distinct from this, and it is the nature of Sat Chitananda. So we looked at the first body, which was the physical body, or also known as the gross body in Sanskrit, the Stula Shariram. And we said the condition of this Stula Shariram is it's Indriya Gocharam. It's perceptible to the senses. It's perceptible to me and to you. And whatever this is perceptible, we call gross or physical. And we looked at cause of this physical body, and we said there are 2 causes. One is a general cause, which was the 5 elements after they go through the process of grossification. And the specific cause why your body looks different from my body is Purva Janma Karma, past birth karma. And we said the function of this body was it provides a temporary residence for the jiva. It's used by the individual jiva to operate in the world and interact with the world and have experiences. What kind of experiences? Sukha experiences, dukkha experiences, and mixed, pleasurable, painful, and mixed experiences. And the nature of this body was that it constantly undergoes change. Before birth, it exists in fetal form, it is born, then it continues to grow till a certain age, after which the growth stops, but the modifications, transformations continue. And at some point, it starts decaying, and finally there is death of the physical body. But that is not the end either, because the body again gets transformed into the 5 elements. So these changes, these constant changes that the physical body goes through in the lifetime was called Shadvikara. So those are terms you should remember, Shadvikara. I won't tell you what they are right now, I'll just give you the names. It was Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Viparniyamate, Apakshiyate, and Vinashyati. So these will keep coming up again and again in your Vedantic study. So you should know these words. Now we will move on to the second body. So on your page 7, I will chant and you can repeat. Sukshma Shariram Kim.
Sukshma Shariram Kim.
Shariram Kim.
Apanchikritam.
Apanchikritam.
Mahabhutaihi kritam.
Mahabhutaikratam.
Satkarmajanyam.
Satkarmajanyam.
Sukha dukkha bhoga sadhanam.
Sukha dukkhaadi bhoga sadhanam.
Sorry. Panchakarmendriyani.
Panchakarmendriyani.
I missed one. Panchagyanendriyani.
Panchajnanendriyani.
Panchakarmendriyani.
Panchakarmendriyani.
Panchapranadayo.
Panchapranadayo.
Manaschaikam.
Manaschaikam.
Jaikam.
Buddhishchaikam.
Buddhishchaikam.
Evam saptakalabihi.
Evam
Evam
saptakalabihi.
saptakala.
Sahayattishtati.
Sahayattishtati.
Tat Sukshma Shariram.
Tat Sukshma
Sukshma
Shariram.
Shariram.
So the student is now asking, what is Sukshma Shariram? Also translated as the subtle body. And we will again see the condition, the cause, the function, the nature and constituents of this body. The condition is, this is subtle. So it is not visible to others. It is indriya agocharam. So the physical body was indriya gocharam, means perceptible to the senses, and the subtle body is indriya agocharam, not perceptible. And one of the components of the Sukshma Shariram is the mind. And so that's easy to understand from that example. Our minds are not perceptible to each other. I can see your physical body, and because in this class, I can see some of your faces right now on the video. So your physical body is visible to me, but I have no idea if your mind is here or not. That is not perceptible to me. I hope it is. But what thoughts are going on in that mind is, it's perceptible to a certain extent, because at least it's perceptible to us, right? So it's partially knowable, unlike the physical body, which is knowable to everyone who comes across it. The causes, you would see right so far, the first part of the two bodies was quite similar. So the causes is, it said, apanchikrita pancha mahabhutaihi. So even the subtle body is made up of the 5 great elements that we talked about: space, air, fire, earth, water, right? But this is made of the 5 great elements before the process of grossification. So it's made of the subtle 5 elements. This you will understand a bit more down this text, because we will talk about the process of creation, and then we will talk about this process of grossification at that point. So for now, just know that the subtle body is made of the subtle 5 elements, and the physical body was made of the physical 5 elements. So, and just like the physical body, even the subtle body has a specific cause, which is again Purva Janma Karma, Sat Karma Janma. So Sat Karma, because it says for this human body, good karma is required, because a human birth is a very auspicious birth, because this is the only birth where there is free will and there is a possibility of liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And the function of this body is again the same as that of the physical, which is, it is for sukha dukkha adi bhoga sadhanam. So it is for experiencing pleasurable, painful, and mixed experiences. Sadhanam means by which we gain something, gather something, or do something. It's called sadhanam. So it's for this purpose that this body is available for. And these, it is made up of 17 instruments, which the line said, Saptadasha Kalabhihi, which means 17 instruments, which we will name now. So these are the 17 components of your Sukshma Sareeram are 5 organs of knowledge, that is 5 Gyan Indriyani. We will get into all these in detail, but just note down what these 17 are for now mentally. There is 5 organs of action, also known as Pancha Karmindriyani, Pancha Prana, the 5 pranas, the mind, and intellect. It's total 17. So Gyanendriyanis are instruments of knowledge, are basically your input instruments, your sense of smell, taste, and so on. The Karmendriyanis are your output organs, your locomotion, grasping ability, and so on. Pancha Prana is the 5 pranas in your body, which are used for circulation, respiration, and all that. We will get into it. And Manaha, the mind, and Buddhi, the intellect. So Shastra makes a distinction between what is mind and what is intellect. The mind is the emotional part, the instinctive part, and Buddhi is the rational part, the deciding part. So we will get into it in detail very shortly. So for now, we said a condition is not perceptible to the senses. Its causes are the 5 subtle elements, the general cause, and the specific cause was the karma, past birth karma. And the function was the same, to have experiences in this world. And it was made of 17 elements, which we will discuss. And the nature of this, what is the nature of this subtle body? It's not mentioned in this verse, but it is also subject to change and transformation. So look at the mind, which is a constituent of this body. It's changing or not changing. It's constantly changing. It's even completely resolved when you're in deep sleep. And every moment there is thought after thought, and the intellect can be improved over time and so on. So it is also subject to change and destruction, though the subtle body has a slightly longer life compared to the physical body. So the physical body is present from the time of conception to the time of death alone, but the subtle body survives beyond the time of death. So it has a slightly longer life. It continues with you birth after birth, which is why whatever impressions you carry, whatever habits you pick up in this lifetime, which we call vasanas, they can continue into your future lifetime. So this is kind of what also explains why, you might have 2 kids born to the same family, but they might have a very different constitution, mental constitution right from when they were toddlers. One might be very shy and reserved, and the other might be very playful, very outgoing, daring child, So because we carry these vasanas from life to birth, life after life. And so every living being has a Sukshma Shariram. So it's what makes the living being alive, So once it's not perceptible. So, but even death is not really perceptible. We know it through the inference. A doctor shines some light in the eyes of the person, tries to find the pulse, and when none of these are found, they declare that the person is dead. But that simply means the Sukshma Shariram has exited the physical body. So every living being will have a Sukshma Shariram, which is specific for the physical body, right? So a fish Sukshma Shariram has to be different from a human Sukshma Shariram because it has to perform different physiological functions. And I said it has a slightly longer time than the physical body, but it is also subject to destruction. And when does this subtle body get destroyed? At the time of pralayam, at the time of the cosmic dissolution of the universe is when the subtle body dissolves, or also at the time of moksha, at the time of liberation. Because one of the promises at the time of liberation is there'll be no further rebirths. This also we will look at later in the text. So I know we've covered a lot, so we can take some questions, but we will be getting into each of these details we discussed right now in more detail.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
It says the Sthula Sharira is of course made of Pancha Mahabhuta after they have undergone the process of Panchi Dharana.
Panchikaran. Yeah.
So it is written, I don't know if it is the same word or it's different. That's the clarification I'm seeking. It says Panchi Dharana with the Sthula Sharira, and in reference to Sukshma Sharira, it says it is composed of Pancha Mahabhutas prior to their undergoing Panchikarana. So is this
written
the same word?
And it's Panchikritam. And so in the case of Sthula Shariram, it said Panchikritam. And in the case of Sukshma Shariram, it said Apanchikritam, which means before.
I mean, I was reading English, so probably that is the difference.
Yeah, because they might have just clubbed it. So there is some Sandhi rules in Sanskrit where when two letters merge, they make a different sound. But the word itself, if you want to know the individual word, is Panchikritam.
So what does Panchikritam mean really? And what are they explaining?
We will talk about it in a lot of detail later in this text because it will come up at the time of creation.
Om Spandanaji, one question.
Mr. Spandanaji, I have a question.
Yes.
So you just mentioned that Sukshma Sharira provides once moksha is attained. So, and then you also mentioned that like Sukshma Sharir contains Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas. So, like what happens to them at the point of moksha?
Right. So I will again ask you to park this question because we will get into all these in more detail.
Spandanaji, I have a question.
Yes, Srilata.
You said astral body of Sukshma Sharira has 17 elements, no?
17 elements.
So,
yes,
somewhere else I read it has 19 elements. So which one is right?
It is, I will explain that also.
Okay. So one more question. our subtle body we carry to the next birth also, na?
Correct.
Till pralayam. So you said the subtle body of human is different from subtle body of fish or any other animals or any other creatures. So if we are born not as a human in our next birth, then what will happen to our subtle body, human subtle body?
Yeah, so you will get a subtle, you will get the physiology fit for that body. So the Sukshma Sareeram as a complete entity will be the same. Right? But what will manifest in this birth will be relevant to that physical body.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
But it will be more clear when I finish the next part.
Okay,
So
thank you. Thank you, Spandana ji.
Now, and let me finish these next parts. I think a lot of these questions will be clearer then.
Okay.
So Kyatia, is there anything?
No, related to this only that ma'am earlier that asked that so like if suppose we got human birth this birth, then does it guarantee that next birth we don't get any other animal's birth, and do we continue to elevate, or how does it go? That was the question. But
I'll very quickly answer, though it's not directly relevant to this. No, that does not guarantee that at all. That you can have an animal birth, or you can have a lower birth after a human birth, because a human birth has free will, which we will discuss in a lot more detail in the karma section. So you're accumulating both good karma and bad karma, depending on the actions you take, and you can have a lower birth if you live a life, which is deserving of a lower birth. The only promise which is made much later in the Bhagavad Gita is once you've entered the spiritual path, and of course, which means not just like a superficial entering, like starting a class or something, but you've actually you've gained all those qualifications that we talked about in Sadhana Chatushtaya, and you've entered the physical in the spiritual path. Lord Krishna's promise in the Gita is there won't be any downfall from there. So even if one does not manage to achieve moksha in this lifetime, all the effort put in this lifetime towards moksha will not go to waste. So you will continue from there.
Okay. Namaste. I have a question.
Yes, Rolly, can I ask you to hold it, because I would like to ask questions, and we'll take more questions at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so let's read the next part, continuing on page 7. Shotram tvak.
Shotram tvak.
Rakshurasanam.
Rakshurasanam.
Dranamiti.
Dranamiti.
Panchajnanendriyani.
Panchajnanendriyani.
Shotrasya digdevata.
Shotrasya digdevata.
Vacho vayuhu.
Vacho vyayuhu.
Chakshu suryaha.
Chakshu suryaha.
Rasanaya varunaha.
Rasanaya varunaha.
Pranasya ashvinau.
Dranasya ashvinau.
Iti jnanendriya devataha.
Iti jnanendriya devataha.
Okay, so here, meeting everyone. Yeah, so we're talking about the 5 input organs, the 5 jnanendriyas. And here we are talking about So Shrotram is organ of hearing, Tvak is organ of touch, Chakshu is organ of seeing, Rasana is organ of taste, and Grahanam is organ of smell. So why am I being very specific to say organ of and not just ear, skin, and so on? Because we're talking about, we're not talking about the physical part. We're talking about the power behind the organ, which allows us to have these functions. So because the physical parts are there even in a dead body, but a dead body cannot see, right? So the physical parts itself, so our eyes, ears, are called golakams. And the power behind, which allows us to, power behind the eyes, which allows us to see, this is called the indriya. So when we're talking about the components of the subtle body, we're talking about the indriyams and not the golakams. So because in a deaf person, the golakam of hearing, the ear, is there, but the indriyam of hearing, which is strotram, that is missing. Right? So the deaf person hence cannot hear. And the author in this prose is talking about the devatas. So every sense organ has a presiding deity. Right? So I might start to lose some of you here, especially if you're not of religious background. So let me quickly explain what we mean by deities and devatas here. So in Vedanta, when we refer to devatas, we simply mean the full power of these things. So each of us have a limited or finite faculty of hearing, right? A dog can hear better than us. So we can hear, but this dog can hear better. We can see, but a cat can see better than us in the dark. So all these individual finite faculty, if you add all of them up, so if you add up the total power of sight which exists, we call that a devata, and we give that devata a name. So any power which exists at the macro level is called a devata. So to give you an example, in an organization, there might be a marketing head, there might be a finance head. So each of them have their own areas of operation. So the marketing head can take decisions about marketing. The finance head can take finance decisions. The logistics head can take decisions about logistics and so on. And these powers were likely delegated to them by the CEO of the company. And the CEO of the company has the power to make the complete decisions, right? So in this context, so each of the devatas are responsible for one area of operation. So for example, Surya Devata is responsible for this power of sight, and all the devatas then roll up to Ishvara. So all the powers of all the devatas combined together is what we call Ishvara. And so God is basically, Ishvara is the conglomeration of all the powers available in creation. So any of the powers are functioning with the blessing of Ishvara. So here the names of devatas are given. So Shotrasya is Dik Devata, which is directions. That's what makes the total absolute hearing power possible. Tvach, touch, is Vayu Devata, also air, but not the air we can feel, but the subtle air. So Chakshu, sight, is Surya Devata, which is why when someone has an eye problem, this is of course not Vedanta, but more Purva Vedas, it is suggested to chant Aditya Hridaya Stotram or do Surya Namaskars, and actually it seems to help. And Rasanaya is Varuna Devata, the Lord of taste, the Lord of water. And Granasya is the smell is Ashwino Devatas. Ashwino is dual, the two Ashwina Devatas, Ashwini Devatas presiding over the left and right nostril. So you just need to understand what is this concept of Devata. Beyond that, you don't need to worry too much. So we will continue with the. So then the author continues with what is the area of operation of these, which is very simple. So we'll chant very quickly. Shotrasya Vishaya Shabda Grahanam.
Shrotrasya Vishayah Shabdagrahanam.
Vacho Vishaya Sparsha Grahanam.
Vacho Vishayah Sparshagrahanam.
Chakshusho Vishaya Rupa Grahanam.
Chakshusho
Rupagrahanam.
Rasanaya Vishaya Rasagrahanam.
Rasanaya Rasagrahanam.
Granasya Vishayo Gandagrahanam. Graneti.
Granasya
Vishayo Gandagrahanam.
This is fairly simple. The author is just saying Shrotrasya Vishya, the function of the organ of hearing is grasping of sound or experiencing the sound. The function of skin is perception of touch. The function of the organ of seeing is the perception of rupam, which is colors and shapes. The function of tongue is receiving taste, and the function of the organ of smell is receiving smell. So it's fairly simple. That's the 5 Gyanendriyas, their functions, and the Devatas presiding over the Gyanendriyas. Any questions, or shall we go to the next? Okay, so we can do the next part. Right. Yes. Vacho Devata Vahnihi.
Vacho Devata
Vahnihi.
Hasto Indriyaham.
Hastayo
Adayo Vishnu.
Padayo
Vishnu.
Payor Mrityuhu.
Payor Mrityuhu.
Upastaya Prajapatihi.
Upastaya Prajapatihi.
Iti Karmendriya Devataha.
Iti
Devata.
Let's chant the next part too. Vacho Vishayo Vashnam.
Vacho Vishaya Vashanam.
Panyor Vishayo Vastu Grahanam.
Panyor Vishayo Vastu Grahanam.
Padayor Vishayo Gamnam.
Padayor Vishayo
Gamanam.
Payor Vishayo Malatyagaha.
Payor Vishayo Malatyagaha.
Upastasya Vishaya Ananda iti.
Upasthasya Vishaya
Ananda.
So we're talking about the 5 output organs now, which is the 5 organs of action, or also known as the karmendriyanis. So here vak is organ of speech. So again, remember, we're not talking about the physical mouth, but we're talking about the physical mouth being called the golakam. We're talking about the indriyam, right? And the hasta and is basically the power behind the hands. And Padayor is the power behind the legs, the locomotion, allowing us to walk around. Payur is Payuhu is organ which removes the waste from the body, the food converted into energy and then waste, and the extra is discarded, so there is no health hazard, right? So this is Payuhu, and Upastaha is the power behind the organ of reproduction. And the presiding deity of all these is Vak Devata, is Agni, the Devata for the corresponding total power of speech is Agni, the fire god. Why fire god? Because when we speak, we throw light on a topic. So sometimes it is possible that words generate only heat and no light. That's not what we're talking about here. So Shastra is also indicating that when we speak, we should reveal something. We should say something, we should have something worthwhile to say, then only we must speak. And Hasta, power behind the hands, the presiding deity is Indra, also representing strength. This represents the total power of handling things. And Pada, the presiding deity is Vishnu. Payor, the presiding deity is of cleansing, is Mrityuhu, the Lord of Death, Lord Yamaha, and Yamadhamaraja, so also known as Kalaha, right, the Lord of Time. So unfortunately, poor Lord Yama often gets a bad rap, but he's the most fair deity of all. He never takes away anyone unless it's their time, you know, and he assists this whole cycle, because for something new to come, the old has to be removed for something new to come in its place. And Upastaya, the presiding deity for the organ of reproduction or generation, is Prajapatihi. This is Lord Brahma, not Brahman, but Lord Brahma, the four-headed Lord Brahma. So in Vedanta, to keep us from confusing the two, we say Lord Brahmaji, and we say Brahman as Brahman. So Brahmaji was who created all the species where, so whereas one human can produce only another human, and a cat can produce another cat, but Lord Brahmaji is responsible for the entire creation. And yeah, so these are all the deities, and like previously, the next few verses just gave the spheres of action, which is the field of operation of Vishaya is speech. The field of operation of Panayor is to grab and hold objects, Vastu Grahanam, it said. And Payor, the field of operation is to go move around, Gacha. Payor is Tyagaha, get rid of any impurity, Mala. And Upastaha, the field of operation, is pleasure or Ananda, it is said. Of course, the act of procreation itself is pleasurable, but the author is referring to the particular joy when a child is born, the joy of shaping and molding this child that only parents can experience. So scriptures look upon parenthood as Ananda, as one sees oneself in their child. People believe that they survive in their children. We're not saying all these things are true, but people believe these things. So children represent immortality to people. And the other aspect of these is Ananta, so which means immortality. Right. So these are the 5 karmendriyas. So we finished 10 components of the total 17. And we can take some questions if there are any.
Namaste, Spandanaji. I had this question. You said that Sukshma Sharira is what gives life to the body.
Correct.
So, is it Atma, like, does Atma doesn't give life to the body, or like, is it the same as Atma, or is it different?
No, it's different from Atma. So we're talking about, so distinct from Atma, not different from. So we're talking about, right now we're talking about all the Anatma. What Atma is distinct from, right? So we're talking about all the components of Anatma. And so, like we said, we're trying to understand it's distinct from in the sense of like, how is this cup distinct from clay? This cup is not the clay, right? It is, so I'm looking at the cup, which is Anatma, name and form, but the clay is the Atma, which is what's the underlying substance. So because cup is what we see, we are right now inquiring into what is the cup, what is the Anatma. And to help us understand what is Anatma, there were different classifications. And the first set of classifications was the three bodies. So
Yeah, I understand the distinction part, but the point where you said that this is what gives life to the body. So is this Sukshma Sharira is what gives life to the body? So like when we are dead, then this is what leaves and not the Atma.
We will come to Atma later, but for now you can take the example of, so what's letting the fan function? It's electricity. Right. But electricity is the source of how the fan is functioning locally. But the electricity itself was generated elsewhere. There is a bigger source for the electricity. So we will come to that. So it's just what's making this physical body function right now. So locally speaking is if the Sukshma Shariram is locally available in the physical body will still be alive. If the Sukshma Shariram has departed from the physical body will be declared dead.
Right, okay.
But all this, we talked about the Devatas and all, it was also to explain that there is a bigger picture for everything. Right. So we have the limited power of sight, but there is something responsible for this collective power of sight. So all our power of sight put together, Surya is what we would call Surya Devata. Right?
Okay, and somebody...
Similarly, like everything functioning in this universe, how all these planets move around a particular direction and don't manage to collide into each other, how we all manage to stay sitting stably on this fast-moving Earth, which is spinning around the sun. How there is just the right temperature for us to survive on this planet, how the law of karma functions, all this, how all this works is Ishvara. Again, we will talk about.
Right. One more question about a question somebody asked in the class only, that you said that a Sukshma Sharira of a fish will be different from a human being or similarly.
Right.
Then the question was that if suppose a human is born as a fish, then but the Sukshma Sharira was of a human being. So how does that work? So
right. So that statement you'll understand when we kind of go into the next bit, which is the fivefold pranic system. So, right. So a human being will have a particular digestion system, a particular respiration system, which is required for a human. So a fish will require a completely different kind of respiration system. So I meant that statement from that sense, that whatever's that Sukshma Shariram will adapt to the needs of the Sthula Sharira. That it's
Okay, so like
helping
is this Sukshma Sharira is a set of principles or is it physical? Like, is
So
it a
it's not
physical?
physical, it's subtle, but it consists of all these 17 components that we are talking about right now. So we talked about Pancha Gyanendriyas and the Pancha Karmendriyas, which was specific to a human Sthula Shariram, right? Like, so not all living things will have hands and legs and so on. So we're talking about that. But there are certain components of the Sukshma Shariram which will continue from birth to birth. So we're also talking about the mind. So certain whatever impressions are made in the mind will continue from birth to birth. Not all of them, but quite a few of them, which is why, this is called vasanas, which is why sometimes I don't know if you saw this viral video of a monkey which would go to this temple every day, and it would like kind of prostrate and then do some these pradarshanas and everything. Like, how do you explain that? So it could have been seeing humans in this lifetime and done this, or it could have been like some past vasanas from another lifetime which is showing up if in their human birth this every morning from childhood to death. Likely, that vasana carried on. So there's certain elements which will carry on. We understand this more and more.
And one more question, Swarnaji. So, Abhi, you mentioned that there, like, the Sukshma Sharir has 17 elements, but there are certain, even human beings, right? There, like,
Sorry,
someone might be deaf.
not very clear.
Uh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you'll have to just speak maybe a little more loudly.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm saying that you mentioned that the Sukshma Sharir has 17 elements, but in certain human beings, so for example, if there's a deaf person, then the hearing ability is not there. So how does that happen?
Yeah, so you remember I spoke about Golakam and Indriyam, right?
So Indriya is missing, but Indriya is
Golakam
the,
is there. In the deaf person, also the Golakam of hearing is there, the ear, but the Indriyam is missing. The power of hearing is missing.
so then that person does not have all the elements of Sukshma Sharir.
Yeah, you could say, I mean, they all have, but the power is very less. It's kind of nil. So it's not for whatever reason that power is not functioning in that person. So sometimes, through surgeries and all, deaf people can start hearing, right? Or they can use hearing aids and they can start hearing a little better and stuff. So you can say it's not, the power is weak or negligible.
Okay. And does that like travel with the Sukshma Sharir? So if the Sukshma Sharir is moving from body to body, like after a person dies, and then, so does that weak power like remains that way?
It would
Or it
depend
could lead to travel?
see, because it's basically rolling up to the Devata, which has the complete power, right? So the particular body you will get in a birth will depend on, remember the specific cause? Do you remember what was the specific cause we discussed of the body? Both the physical body.
Yeah, basis prarabdha karma.
Right. So it's based on the karma. So whether we will talk about karma in a lot of detail, like the whole of next section is about karma. Actually, towards the end, the last section is all about karma. So we'll talk about it in a lot of detail.
Okay.
Yeah. But probably all of you will still not be satisfied with how much we'll talk about karma, but we'll talk about it even more in Bhagavad Gita. Any more questions?
I have one question to the question she asked.
Yeah.
That the golakam is there, but the power is not there.
Mhm.
But with surgery, some people can start hearing.
Mhm.
So somebody got a certain deficiency in their body because of their karmas,
Mhm.
but can medical science change it? Like, so that is what is that what we are saying? Because
And so it's not, I mean, yes, you can say the instrument in that case could have been medical science, right? But again, it's a question about karma, but I can answer is karma determines the situations which we are given in life. It doesn't determine the outcome necessarily, right? So karma is not kind of predeterministic in that way. It will only tell me what situations I'll be faced in life. So two people could be born deaf. Both could have the financial capacity to do the surgery also, which is also based on the karma. But one could choose not to do the surgery, one could choose the surgery, right? So there's an element of free will there. One could have so say, and even if you choose to do the surgery, the doctor could be competent, could be not competent. So which is again a factor of karma, which comes into play. And after surgery, there are certain precautions the doctor told you to take. You can choose to take the precautions, or you can choose not to take the precautions, which is again your free will, which comes into picture. So all these will impact the final result of will you be able to hear after the surgery or not, right? So the situation is predetermined, right? So the competence of the doctor also to an extent is predetermined, but your free will was also there because you had an option to pick which doctor, you had an option to research and pick which doctor you go for and all that. So both your own effort and karma, karma is determining what situation you came to you, right? The fact that you were, say, born deaf was what karma handed to you. Now, what you did with that is your own free will. Sometimes you can put in a lot of efforts, but it's not enough to override the karma. Like, so say you did all you could, you went and tried to find the best doctor and everything, but something went wrong during surgery, which was out of control, and the surgery was not successful. So the outcome is not predetermined. But then if you just decided, okay, I won't do the surgery, I won't try to do anything about it, there is no way you will hear, right? So it's an element of the outcome is then a mix of your own effort and again karma.
Actual karma can be very complex. I mean, prarabdha can be a lot. You are creating karma every second.
Right. So let's wait for these karma questions till we come to the karma section. Otherwise, it will cause more confusion because we will explain the whole mechanics of karma. Any questions related to this class that we did? Okay, great. So let's end with the closing prayers and I'll see you next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat. Have a beautiful week, everyone.
Thank you, Spandana ji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spandana.
thank you.
Thank you.